Welcome back to Ghetto Nation, where true horror hides in the shadows. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, then you already know. Some stories stick with you. Get comfortable, turn the lights down, and don't look behind you. These stories are based on real events, and some of them might still be happening. Let's begin. Story 1. The Neighbor's Room. When I finally signed the lease for my new apartment, I was relieved. The place wasn't much, an aging complex in a part of town most people avoided after dark. But it was cheap and close enough to work. I told myself I wouldn't stay long. Just enough time to get back on my feet. The building was old, creaking and groaning in the quiet hours, like it was alive and restless. The smell was something else. A stale mix of mold, dust, and something faintly metallic like rusted blood or old medicine. You get used to weird smells, I told myself. But from the moment I stepped into the hallway, I noticed my neighbor's door. It was cracked open, just a sliver. Not wide enough to see much, but enough that light leaked out. A pale yellow that flickered like a candle flame. Sometimes, when I passed by, I could hear soft humming. At first, it was barely there, almost comforting, like a lullaby. But every night it got louder, deeper, more desperate. The kind of sound that crawls under your skin. I tried to meet the guy once. He was tall, with greasy long hair and hollow cheeks. His clothes were dirty, like he hadn't washed in days. He didn't say a word, just stared at his feet and shuffled past me. He never looked up. The humming followed me home. I'd lie awake, hearing scratching noises, nails dragged slowly across wood, or maybe stone. It was always at night, always near that door. One evening I got home late. The hallway was dark except for a weak yellow glow leaking from under his door. The humming was louder, a low chant, almost rhythmic. My curiosity turned to dread. But I needed answers. I approached slowly. The door was open wider than usual. Peering inside, I saw him sitting in a tattered armchair, motionless. His head was down, hands folded tightly in his lap. On the floor, an old cassette player spun, reels turning slowly. The humming echoed softly from it. I stepped closer. Suddenly, his head snapped up. His eyes met mine, and I swear they were black holes. Endless voids sucking the light out of the room. No whites, no pupils, just nothing. Frozen, I took a step back. The door slammed shut behind me with a violent bang. I fled to my apartment and locked every door and window. The next morning, I asked around. No one talked much, but an old tenant whispered a story. That man had died months ago, in a fire upstairs. The landlord never cleared the place. The humming? They say it never stopped. Some say it's his soul, trapped in that room. That night, the humming returned. But it was different. Louder. Urgent. It seemed to crawl through my walls. My phone buzzed with a notification. No message, just static. Then, from nowhere, an old cassette tape started playing through my speakers. I dropped my phone. The tape kept playing. I'm moving out tomorrow, but I'm terrified to pack the cassette player. What if it's coming with me? Story 2. The Ceiling Watcher. At first, I thought the noises from above were just the usual creaks and groans of an old building settling after the sun went down. I'd lived in older apartments before. This one was no different. The kind of place where pipes rattled and floorboards moaned. You get used to it, or at least you try. But the sounds started changing. The slow, steady footsteps pacing back and forth across the floor above my bedroom began to feel deliberate, not random. There was a rhythm to them, like someone was stalking me, step by step. Sometimes they stopped abruptly, as if waiting to hear my reaction. Then came the tapping. Sharp, rhythmic taps, like fingernails dragging slowly over wood, or claws scratching at the plaster. At first, I convinced myself it was just a branch brushing the window or a rat behind the walls. But every night, it grew louder, more insistent, closer. I complained to the landlord, who shrugged it off. "That apartment's been empty for months," he said. "Last tenant vanished without a trace. Police never found a clue. Probably moved out." I tried to laugh it off, but the stories gnawed at me. The next morning, I knocked on the empty apartment's door. No answer. The place was dark, but the floor above my ceiling was stained with strange scratch marks. Deep grooves carved into the wood, chaotic but somehow patterned. Nights got worse. I'd lie awake and hear the pacing, the tapping, the scratching. Sometimes there was whispering, indecipherable murmurs that seemed to crawl along the ceiling right above me. I couldn't understand the words, but the tone was pleading, desperate. One night, while lying in bed, I caught movement in the corner of my eye. The cracked, peeling paint on the ceiling seemed to ripple, like skin stretched too thin. Shadows twisted into grotesque faces, pale and distorted. Their empty eyes locked onto me. I froze. A cold breath brushed the back of my neck, like icy fingers trailing down my spine. A voice whispered so softly I could barely hear it, but the words cut deeper than a knife. "Don't look up." But the urge to look was overwhelming. I raised my eyes slowly toward the ceiling. Suddenly, the plaster cracked. Hairline fractures exploded into jagged splinters, breaking apart like shattered glass. Dust and fragments rained down. And then, dozens of pale, skeletal hands burst through the ceiling. They clawed and grasped, fingers twitching and curling like serpents, desperate to drag me up into the darkness above. I screamed, scrambling away in terror, knocking over my nightstand and lamp in the chaos. My phone slipped from my hand and landed on the floor, casting a trembling beam across the room. The hands disappeared as suddenly as they came, but the air stayed cold, deathly cold. I ran to the door, fumbling with the lock, and when I opened it, the landlord was standing there. His face was ashen, eyes sunken. "You shouldn't have looked," he said grimly. "That apartment, it's cursed. The previous tenant didn't just disappear. They were taken by whatever lives above us. It feeds on those who stare, who dare to see." He showed me the scratch marks on the ceiling again. They weren't random. They formed an ancient warning in a language older than the building itself. He told me the markings meant, "Beware the watchers above." I left that night, moving out as fast as I could. But even now, miles away, sometimes when it's dead silent, I hear footsteps pacing, slow and deliberate, right above me, watching. Story 3. The apartment that wasn't there. It all started on an ordinary morning, the kind where you're rushing to get out the door, but your mind is already halfway through the day. I was hurrying down the hallway of my apartment building, keys jingling in my hand, coffee in the other, when I saw it. A door at the end of the hall that I'd never noticed before. I froze. It was new, freshly painted, spotless white with a shiny brass handle that gleamed unnaturally in the dim hallway light. No number, no nameplate, no signs of any kind that it belonged there. My building was old, familiar. I'd lived there 2 years and walked this hall hundreds of times. This door was a stranger. Curiosity prickled at the back of my neck, but I shook it off and kept walking, until I stopped and turned back. The door was too perfect, too out of place. I glanced around. No one was nearby. No tenants, no maintenance workers, just silence. My heart hammered as I reached out and, almost without thinking, grasped the cold brass handle. The door opened easily. No creak, no resistance. Beyond was an apartment, but not like any I'd ever seen. The floor gleamed like polished marble. Walls were pristine white, adorned with tasteful modern art I didn't recognize. Sunlight streamed through enormous windows that faced a view I'd never seen, a skyline I didn't recognize. The apartment felt sterile, staged, like a showroom. I stepped inside, breath catching as I realized the layout was eerily familiar. Almost exactly like my own apartment, but cleaner. Too clean. Every surface shined without a speck of dust. The furniture was modern, but pristine, untouched by use. The couch cushions uncreased, the sheets perfectly folded with no sign they'd ever been slept on. It was like walking into a mirror version of my life. A flawless version. Almost too perfect to be real. I heard my footsteps echo softly in the space. It was silent otherwise, unnervingly so. I pulled out my phone to call someone. Anything. But my signal was gone. No bars. Nothing. I tried again, panic rising. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. No sender. No number. Just 3 words. Welcome home. My stomach dropped. I tried to back away, to leave. But the door slammed shut behind me with a solid thud that echoed off the walls. I spun around and tugged the handle. Locked. No keyhole. No way out. Panic exploded inside me. I searched the apartment for any other doors, windows, exits, but the windows were too high, sealed shut. The walls, smooth and unbroken. No hidden doors. No ventilation shafts. The silence was broken by the sudden flicker of the television turning on by itself. Static filled the screen. Then an image appeared. My own face, staring back at me. But it wasn't a reflection. It was distorted, hollowed out. My eyes were empty black voids, like pits of darkness sucking in light. The screen flickered again, and the figure on the screen mouthed words. Silent, but unmistakably clear. You don't belong here. I slammed my fists against the glass, screamed, but no sound came out. The lights went out, plunging the room into complete darkness. In the blackness, I could hear breathing. Deep, slow, deliberate. Not my own. Something watching. Then the lights snapped back on, and I was no longer inside the strange apartment. I was back in my usual hallway. The mysterious door was gone. Vanished, as if it had never been there. I stumbled back to my apartment, shaking, heart pounding. But my nightmare wasn't over. Later that night, when I looked at my phone, there was a new photo. It was of me, asleep in that perfect, pristine apartment. I'd never taken the picture. The angle was impossible to capture from inside my real apartment. Since that day, I swear I see the door flicker at the end of my hallway whenever I'm alone. Like a ghost door, appearing and disappearing just beyond the edge of my vision. Sometimes, late at night, I feel cold breath on my neck, a presence hovering just behind me. I've checked every corner, every room, but there's nothing there. Just the lingering feeling of being watched by something that doesn't belong. The question that haunts me every waking moment is this: if I don't belong in that flawless ghost apartment, then who does? And what happens to the people it traps? Because I'm not sure I'll ever get out. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. Subscribe for more true horror stories, told just the way they happened. Stay alert, stay curious, and remember, the scariest things are the ones that feel real. Until next time, keep your lights on.